The Arena Challenge. First document. The massive Colosseum stretched across the surface of Kepler 442b, its crystalline walls reaching toward the purple sky. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy filled the tiered seats, their excited chatter creating a symphony of alien languages that echoed through the arena. The betting booths were packed with creatures wagering their life savings on what promised to be the most spectacular match of the century. Commander Xylax stood in the preparation chamber, his 4 arms checking his pulse rifle for the 100th time. Standing nearly 9 feet tall, his chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the artificial lights. His species, the Vorthok, had dominated galactic warfare for 3 millennia. They were born warriors, genetically enhanced for combat, with reflexes 3 times faster than most sentient species, and skin that could deflect energy weapons. "The human will not last 30 seconds, Xylax's aide, Lieutenant Krax, buzzed through his mandibles. "Our intelligence reports show these Marines are primitive warriors from a backwater planet. They still use chemical projectile weapons and have no genetic modifications." Xylax's compound eyes glittered with anticipation. The Galactic Combat Federation had been dominated by his people for generations. When the recently discovered human species had requested to participate, the entire galaxy had laughed. These soft-skinned bipeds claimed to be warriors, but they looked more like the merchant class from Rigel Prime. The arena's announcement system crackled to life. "Citizens of the galaxy, today we witness history. For the first time, a representative from the newly contacted human species will face our reigning champion in single combat." The crowd erupted in a mixture of cheers and derisive laughter. Some spectators held up holographic signs mocking the human's appearance, while others placed last-minute bets against the obvious underdog. On the opposite side of the arena, Staff Sergeant Marcus Rodriguez sat calmly on a metal bench, methodically checking his gear. At 5 feet 10 inches and weighing 180 pounds, he looked impossibly small compared to his opponent. His standard-issue combat fatigues seemed almost quaint next to the advanced armor worn by other galactic species. "Sergeant, are you certain about this?" Admiral Chen's voice came through his earpiece. She was watching from the human diplomatic vessel orbiting the planet. "The medical scans show this creature's bone density is off the charts. His carapace can stop plasma bolts." Rodriguez adjusted the straps on his boots and stood up, rolling his shoulders to loosen the muscles. "Ma'am, with respect, I've been in plenty of scraps. Size isn't everything." "Marcus, this isn't Afghanistan or Somalia. This thing was literally bred for war. The Vorthak have been the apex predators of this galaxy for longer than human civilization has existed." The Marine picked up his M4 carbine and performed a final function check. The weapon looked primitive compared to the energy weapons used throughout the galaxy, but Rodriguez had trained with it for 15 years. It was an extension of his body, as familiar as his own heartbeat. "Admiral? My grandfather fought in Vietnam with an M16. My father carried one in Iraq. This rifle has put down everything from insurgents to grizzly bears. I'm not worried about some oversized bug." Through the arena's viewing portal, Rodriguez could see his opponent being introduced to the crowd. The creature's 4 arms moved in perfect coordination as it demonstrated its weapons. Energy bolts crackled between its fingers, and its mandibles clicked in what the humans had learned was the Vorthak equivalent of laughter. The crowd's roar grew louder as statistics flashed on the massive holographic displays. Xylax's record was perfect. 247 victories, 0 defeats. He had killed opponents from 17 different species and had never taken longer than 90 seconds to achieve victory. "The human has no chance," declared Kronak, the Altarian sports commentator whose voice was being broadcast to 3 billion viewers across the galaxy. "Look at those pathetic muscle fibers. Humans have no natural armor, no enhanced reflexes, and their primitive brain structure limits their combat processing speed." Rodriguez closed his eyes and took 3 deep breaths, a technique his drill instructor had taught him 20 years ago. He thought about his wife Sarah back on Earth, about his daughter Emma who was starting her first year of college. He thought about every Marine who had come before him, every battle fought with courage against impossible odds. The arena doors began to open with a grinding mechanical sound that seemed to shake the entire structure. Brilliant white light flooded into both preparation chambers as the 2 fighters were called to face each other. Rodriguez stepped into the arena, his boots crunching on the sand-covered floor. The noise from the crowd was deafening, a wall of sound that would have overwhelmed most beings. But Marines were trained to function in chaos, to find calm in the storm. Across the arena, Xylac emerged to thunderous applause. His 4 arms spread wide in a gesture of dominance, his mandibles clicking rapidly in excitement. He had waited months for this opportunity to demonstrate Vorthak's superiority over these new humans. The 2 fighters approached the center of the arena, where an automated referee system waited. The holographic judge materialized as they drew near, its artificial voice booming across the Colosseum. "Combatants, you understand the rules. This is a fight to incapacitation or death. No quarter asked, none given. The match begins when the horn sounds. Take your positions." Rodriguez moved to his designated starting point, a red circle painted in the sand 30 meters from his opponent. He could feel the weight of billions of eyes upon him, representing not just himself, but all of humanity. The pressure should have been crushing, but instead, it felt familiar. Every patrol in hostile territory, every raid on enemy positions had prepared him for this moment. Xylac positioned himself with predatory grace, his energy weapons charging with an ominous hum. His compound eyes analyzed every detail of the human's stance, calculating angles of attack and estimating time to kill. 3 seconds seemed generous. The arena fell silent. Even the betting booths stopped their chatter as the moment of truth approached. The horn would sound soon, and the galaxy would witness either the continuation of Vorthak dominance or the most shocking upset in galactic combat history. Rodriguez shifted his weight slightly, feeling the familiar comfort of his rifle's stock against his shoulder. His breathing slowed, his heart rate dropped, and his vision narrowed to encompass only what mattered. The galaxy had no idea what a United States Marine was truly capable of when cornered. The horn was about to sound. The 3-Second War, second document. The horn's deep blast echoed across the arena, like the roar of an ancient Earth predator. In that instant, time seemed to fragment into a series of perfectly preserved moments that would be analyzed by galactic military academies for generations to come. Xylac launched himself forward with the explosive power that had made his species legendary. His 4 arms moved in a coordinated dance of death, 2 arms firing precise energy bolts, while the other 2 prepared his signature close combat weapons. His legs, each thicker than a human torso, propelled him across the sand at a speed that appeared as little more than a blur to most spectators. The first energy bolt seared through the air where Rodriguez had been standing a microsecond before. The second and third shots followed in rapid succession, each one calculated to account for human reaction times and movement patterns. According to every tactical analysis, the human should have been vaporized before he could even raise his primitive weapon. But Rodriguez was no longer where any computer model predicted he would be. The moment the horn sounded, 15 years of Marine Corps training took over. His body moved with a fluidity that seemed to defy physics, dropping into a combat crouch while simultaneously bringing his M4 to bear. His movements were not the wild thrashing of a panicked animal, but the precise, economical motions of a predator who had survived 100 firefights. The first thing that saved Rodriguez's life was something no alien tactical computer had accounted for: muscle memory. While Xylac was consciously calculating angles and trajectories, Rodriguez's body was already moving based on thousands of hours of combat drills. His nervous system had been rewired by repetition until reaction became faster than thought. The second thing was experience. Rodriguez had faced enemies with superior firepower before. Taliban fighters with RPGs, insurgents with suicide vests, drug cartels with military-grade weapons. He had learned long ago that the key to surviving overwhelming force was not to fight it head-on, but to move where it wasn't. As Xylac's energy bolts scorched the air around him, Rodriguez rolled left and came up in a firing position that put him at an angle no Vorthak tactical manual had ever considered. His rifle was already tracking his target before his knee hit the sand. The crowd gasped as they watched the human's impossible speed. In the VIP viewing box, Ambassador Krell of the Hegemony dropped his drink. "How is that creature moving so fast? Our scans showed no genetic modifications." What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had been modifying themselves for warfare for millennia, not through genetics but through training. Rodriguez's reflexes had been honed by countless hours of drills, his muscle fibers trained to respond faster than conscious thought. His brain had been rewired by experience to process threats and opportunities in nanoseconds. Xylac's compound eyes registered the human's new position with alarm. This was not in any of the behavioral models. The creature should have been dead or at least frozen in terror. Instead, it was moving with a precision that reminded him of the deadliest predators from his home world. The Vorthak warrior adjusted his aim, firing another burst while his lower arms prepared his plasma blades for close combat. But something was wrong. The human wasn't just dodging randomly, he was positioning himself with purpose. Rodriguez's rifle came up as if it were attached to his body by invisible cables. The M4's iron sights aligned with surgical precision, and for one crystal-clear moment, everything else in the universe faded away. There was no crowd, no alien technology, no galactic implications. There was only the fundamental relationship between a Marine and his rifle, a bond forged in the crucible of combat. The first round left the barrel at 3,100 feet per second. In the milliseconds that followed, several things happened simultaneously. Rodriguez's rifle barked 3 times in rapid succession, the sound sharp and primitive compared to the whine of energy weapons. Each muzzle flash illuminated his face, revealing not panic or desperation, but the cold focus of a professional killer. The 5.56mm rounds, dismissed by galactic military experts as primitive projectiles, proved that kinetic energy was still the universe's most reliable form of violence. The first bullet struck Xylac's center mass, punching through his supposedly impenetrable carapace like it was paper. The second round, fired before the first had even registered on the alien's nervous system, took him in the throat. The third round was insurance, striking just above the first wound. Xylac's forward momentum carried him 2 more steps before his massive body crashed into the sand, his weapons clattering uselessly beside him. The arena fell into a silence so complete that the only sound was the gentle whistle of wind through the crystalline walls. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. The crowd sat frozen, their minds struggling to process what they had just witnessed. The greatest warrior in galactic history had been defeated before he could close half the distance to his opponent. Rodriguez lowered his rifle and performed a tactical reload, his movements calm and professional. He approached the fallen Vorthak with the caution of a soldier who had seen too many enemies play dead. Only when he confirmed that Xylac was indeed finished did he step back and flip his rifle's safety on. The silence shattered as the crowd erupted in chaos. Half the spectators were cheering wildly while the other half were demanding explanations. The betting booths went into meltdown as trillions of credits changed hands. Several diplomatic observers were already frantically messaging their homeworlds to revise their assessments of human military capability. "Impossible!" Kronak's voice cracked as he tried to commentate. The creature, this cannot be real. In the human diplomatic vessel, Admiral Chen sat back in her chair with a slight smile. She had served with Marines long enough to know that the galaxy had just received its first real education about what her species was capable of. Rodriguez walked calmly toward the exit, ignoring the chaos around him. To him, this had been just another day at the office. He had identified a threat, neutralized it efficiently, and was now ready to go home. The fact that he had just redefined humanity's place in the galactic community was someone else's problem. As he reached the arena exit, Rodriguez finally looked up at the crowd. Thousands of alien faces stared back at him, a mixture of awe, fear, and newfound respect in their expressions. He touched his hand to his forehead in a brief salute, then disappeared into the tunnel that led back to the preparation chambers. The galaxy would never be the same. The Ripple Effect. Third document. The news of the 3-second victory spread across the galaxy faster than light itself, carried by quantum communication networks to every civilized world. Within hours, the footage was being analyzed by military experts, xenobiologists, and tactical computers from 1,000 different species. In the hegemony's capital city on Proxima Centauri Prime, General Voss stared at the holographic replay for the 100th time. His scaled fingers drummed against the conference table as he watched the primitive human weapon tear through Xylac's supposedly impenetrable armor. "Run the ballistics analysis again," he commanded his aide. "Sir, we've run it 47 times. The results are consistent. The human projectile weapons achieve penetration through pure kinetic force. No energy signature, no exotic materials, just accelerated metal moving at high velocity." General Voss's reptilian eyes narrowed. "And our best armor?" "Would be penetrated, sir. Our energy dispersal systems are useless against kinetic projectiles. We've been so focused on defending against plasma and laser weapons that we never considered this." Similar conversations were taking place in war rooms across the galaxy. The Altarian Defense Council was in emergency session. The Rigelian Military Academy had suspended all classes to analyze the footage. Even the ancient and supposedly superior Zenthani Empire was quietly reassessing their military doctrines. Back on Kepler 442b, Rodriguez sat in the human embassy's medical bay, undergoing post-combat evaluation. The doctors found nothing wrong with him beyond slightly elevated adrenaline levels, which were already returning to normal. He answered their questions patiently while his mind was already moving on to other things. "Sergeant, do you understand what you've accomplished here?" Ambassador Williams asked, pulling up a chair beside the examination table. Rodriguez shrugged. "I want to fight, sir. That's what Marines do. You've changed the balance of power in this entire galaxy. Every species that thought humanity was weak and primitive is now reconsidering their position." "Good," Rodriguez said simply. "Maybe now they'll show proper respect when they meet other humans." The ambassador leaned forward. "Marcus, I need you to understand something. This wasn't just about proving human capability. The political ramifications are enormous. Trade agreements that were being denied to us are suddenly back on the table. Military alliances that seemed impossible are now being proposed." Through the medical bay's viewport, they could see alien ships arriving at the spaceport in unprecedented numbers. Diplomatic vessels from species that had previously ignored human contact requests were requesting immediate meetings. The betting odds for humanity in future galactic conflicts had shifted from 1,000 to 1 against to even money. Dr. Sarah Chen, the embassy's xenobiologist, entered the room carrying a data tablet. "Ambassador, I've been analyzing the physiological scans from the fight. The other species are baffled by how Rodriguez moved so quickly without genetic modifications." "What's to be baffled about?" Rodriguez asked. "I trained for this my whole career." "That's exactly the point they're missing," Dr. Chen explained. "Every other species in the galaxy relies on natural advantages or genetic engineering for combat superiority. The concept of improving performance through repetitive training is completely foreign to them. Ambassador Williams nodded slowly. You mean they don't have the equivalent of boot camp? Nothing even close. The Vorthak are born warriors, so they never develop training methodologies. The hegemony uses genetic enhancement, so individual improvement through practice is considered unnecessary. Most species either have natural combat abilities or they don't fight at all. Rodriguez stood up and began putting his gear back together. So, what you're telling me is that I won because I did my job the way I was trained to do it? Precisely. And because the job you were trained for is something no other species in the galaxy has ever needed to learn. In the arena's administrative offices, the footage was being studied by teams of analysts who still couldn't believe what they had witnessed. The frame-by-frame breakdown showed movements that should have been impossible for an unenhanced being. Look at this, Technician Zara pointed to a specific sequence. The human's neural response time is actually slower than Xylax, but his physical response is faster. How is that possible? Her supervisor, a grizzled veteran of 100 combat analyses, shook his head. Muscle memory. The human's body was moving before his brain finished processing the threat. It's like his muscles had been programmed to respond automatically. But that would require thousands of hours of repetitive training. Exactly. And apparently, that's exactly what this marine species does. The implications were staggering. If humans could train their bodies to respond faster than their minds could think, what else could they accomplish through sheer repetition and determination? News networks across the galaxy were scrambling to understand what this meant for interspecies relations. The Galactic News Network's top analyst, a Rigelian named K. Tor, was trying to explain the situation to billions of viewers. What we witnessed today wasn't just an upset victory. It was a fundamental challenge to how we understand warfare itself. For millennia, we've believed that superior genetics or technology determines combat superiority. The humans have proven that training and experience can overcome both. In military academies throughout the galaxy, instructors were already revising their curricula. The concept of drill and repetition was being studied with the intensity usually reserved for exotic physics. Rodriguez finished his gear check and headed toward the embassy's communication center. He had promised to call his wife after the fight, and that was more important to him than any galactic implications. Sarah? It's Marcus. Yeah, everything went fine. No, I didn't get hurt. The other guy was bigger, but you know what they say about size. Ambassador Williams watched through the doorway as the Marine had a perfectly normal conversation with his wife about their daughter's college classes and the weather back home on Earth. It was surreal to think that this ordinary man had just redefined humanity's place in the universe. The long-term consequences of the 3-second fight would unfold over the following months. Trade routes would open, military partnerships would form, and humanity would find itself elevated from a minor backwater species to a power that commanded respect. But for Rodriguez, it was just another mission completed. Tomorrow, he would wake up, clean his rifle, and do PT with the embassy security detail. Because that's what Marines do. They train, they fight, and they win. The fact that the rest of the galaxy was just learning this was their problem, not his. In the end, the most devastating weapon humanity brought to the galactic community wasn't advanced technology or genetic enhancement. It was the simple, brutal effectiveness of a well-trained soldier who refused to quit. And as the galaxy would soon learn, Earth had millions more where Rodriguez came from.